This machine is called a pickling injector, and it's directly injecting a saltwater brine into this cut of beef, infusing it with flavor. It's one of the first steps that turns this into this, traditional pastrami that New Yorkers have been eating since the 1900s. We take a closer look at the meat itself and see how traditional pastrami is made. Pastrami is a classic New York deli meat that comes from the navel of a cow. These days, it's most common to use beef brisket. What makes it distinctive from other meats like corned beef is its brining process. And it all starts here at a warehouse in the Bronx.
First, you have to start with the best cut of meat. This identifies that it's choice meat, which is a higher cuts of meat.
Choice beef is known for its tenderness, juiciness, and flavor, and is well suited for dry heat cooking.
With the demand, we've been able to produce almost every day of the week.
New York City is home to a couple dozen Jewish delis, so it's no surprise that the warehouse goes through so much brisket.
So this is part of the reason why our pastrami tastes the way it is, because it has a perfect blend of the fat and the lean meat content. We could go through between 10 and 15,000 pounds a week of the brisket.
Did you say 10 to 15,000?
15,000 pounds, yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
The meat seen here is kosher, as many old-school delis in New York City are Jewish. To be labeled kosher, animals have to be slaughtered in a certain way so that they cannot feel any pain, and the meat must be soaked and salted. For meat to remain kosher as it's shipped from a manufacturer to a facility like this, a mashgiach or supervisor must inspect the establishment to ensure it meets kosher standards.
My job is to make sure that when these products come in, that they are kosher. You'll see this box that says Northland Kosher Beef. And in addition, right here in Hebrew, it says kosher meat. Kosher means fit for use. And the Bible tells us that the Jewish people must keep kosher.
And so what if, like, let's say you do find something?
Then we got to start from zero. The product is no good, got to throw it away. The meat is actually labeled with a K. You see the kosher, okay? The meat also has a plumb book and lets you also know that it's kosher. The meat itself is washed every 3 days.
When all is inspected, the meat can move on to the pickling or the brining process. Gone are the days of the industry where meats like pastrami are brined for 2 to 4 weeks. Now, machinery like this speeds up the process by injecting the brine solution directly into the meat. This allows the meat to retain the same amount of flavor it would get from brining the old-fashioned way, all in just 24 hours.
So I honestly came in here assuming that we would have the meats in the brining solution and you'd have like a ton of refrigerators of like just them soaking up.
Right.
But this is the fastest way.
This is the fastest way, yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
And is this a standard across the board?
For the volume that we're doing, we wouldn't have the time to wait the 2 to 3 weeks. We need to get it in and get it out.
The cuts of beef are pickled one at a time and injected to ensure the juices and flavors penetrate the meat thoroughly.
The brine and the solution that we use is proprietary just for us. We created it. It took many years to get it right, but after years and years in the making, we got it down. This is the solution we use. No one else has anything like it. There's some salt, there's some pepper, there's garlic, there's herbs, there's spices, but it would all be in a powder and a liquid form that we turn into it. It's just the perfect flavor. So when you eat our pastrami, it's like, wow.
So now that the meat is brined,
yes.
What is the next step?
What we're gonna do is obviously, we're gonna seal each individual piece, cryovac sealed, and then that's it. By the next day, tomorrow, could be sold to the stores for consumption.
Mark's team aims to brine and vacuum seal 5,000 pounds of pastrami at a time. And after 24 hours, the pastrami's headed to delis like Pastrami Queen.
This is a brisket. This is the stomach part of a cow. It's the most fatty and meatiest part of a cow. If you didn't have the fat, or as much fat as you need, it would dry out. As it cooks slowly, the fat burns away and melts away slowly into the meat, bringing the flavor further into the meat and therefore keeping it tender and juicy.
What happened if you kept more of the fat on the meat?
You would damage the tenderness and the quality of the meat. The balance is very important.
What do we want to taste with the final product?
It has to be juicy, it has to be savory. You have to taste the fat, the meat, all the flavor that goes into it.
To get the pastrami ready for the smoker, cooks add a dried rub.
It's been 14 days. You remove the meat from the brining process. You add the salt, the pepper, the brown sugar to balance out the salty sweet flavor, and then caramel. We actually add caramel so you could be able to rub it and it's evenly around the meat, which causes a perfect browning of the meat while it's being cooked. And make sure the whole meat is covered.
So you brine it in these ingredients, then you're also rubbing it.
Yes, you keep the flavor so as the meat breaks down and the fat breaks down, the flavor continuously is being reinfused into the meat, which makes the perfect pastrami.
And that's why you do twice,
Yes,
like a brine
twice.
and a dry rub.
Yes, 2 times is always better than once.
The meat is then placed into a smoker for 2 to 4 hours at 225 degrees Fahrenheit. Next comes the steam. The piece of pastrami lies in a steamer for 4 to 6 hours.
This is what a final pastrami brisket would look like at Pastrami Queen.
Yes, sure, you see all the seasoning and everything is still together. It has a good consistency. When you slice it, it stays together. So when you get a bite, it's a fulfilling, savory, salty, sweet, caramelized flavoring.
That looks salivating, holy moly.
It's hard not to take a bite of this meat right now.
I know.
This is our version. I think it works best. Proof is in the pudding. My customers have been customers for decades and decades.